The more you look at Morph, the more applications you just start thinking about. And I was just randomly looking at Floodborn targets and I said, well, why don't I pair this with Ruby and see if Morph is any good with the Floodborns that you get in there, because I really am a huge fan of the 7-drop Aladdin, the one that allows you to gain 2 lore and take 2 lore away from your opponent whenever it banishes the character. And we all know from set 1, when you played Aladdin, you had to either shift him on top of the small Aladdin or play him with Pocket Watch so that he had rush and could take out something right away. Well, with Morph, you now have the versatility to use it with any Floodborn, be it Emerald or Ruby, which is obviously the color pairing we're using here, and you can just basically shift out whatever you need at the time as long as you have it in your hand. So the deck list is linked in the description, but we are utilizing things like the Genie Power Unleashed, which is a card I've always wanted to use since I saw it come out in the first chapter, and we do use it in our second match, which is in the description, the timestamps for those matches. You could use it with Lady Tremaine, which is absolutely insane. We're going to see that in both of these matches, how good Lady Tremaine actually is here. And then you can also use other Floodborns like the Queen. You can use some of the other green ones, but I don't think they're as useful as the red ones, obviously. And what's funny about this is in this deck list, we're not using Be Prepared at all. So in this matchup here, I'm going up against Emerald Steel discard, and I did go second. The opponent does establish a Bucky and a Jafar here, but it looks like their hand is full of Uninkables, and you have to be very careful when you play Emerald Steel discard to not play too many Uninkables, and otherwise you run into a problem like this. So the opponent ends up establishing, their Bucky, Prince John, and a Jafar shift potentially. And we established a Morph and a Bucky, but our hand is pretty full. The opponent only has 4 cards left. I can explain the deck list in a separate video. You might be wondering, like, Quantum, why are you playing, like, Hypnotize? I thought this is a Floodborn deck with Morph. Well, you're using Bucky too, but no Prince John. Yes, that is correct, but the deck has worked. I went 4-0 with this deck so far. But yeah, the opponent ends up shifting Jafar, so my plan to use Teeth and Ambitions, which is why I played that Tinkerbell there, to take out the 2-drop Jafar, didn't work. But I'm not necessarily in a bad spot. Top decking this Bippity Boppity Boo, you're going to now see the power of the deck here. We're going to shift Tremaine onto Morph, which is going to allow us to take out an opponent's character and force the discard. Who needs Prince John when you can just control the board and discard the opponent's hand? And then we're going to sing Bippity Boppity Boo with the Tinkerbell after we quest with the Tremaine to get 2 lore. And that's going to allow us to get the Morph back to hand so we can shift it again if we wanted. But the Tremaine's going to drop again, getting a 2-for-1 value, or essentially a 4-for-1 value, right? Because you're going to take out 2 cards on board with the Tremaine hitting twice, and 2 cards from hand with the Bucky triggering twice as well. And so just like that, you're going to see us, just kind of stay in control of the game here despite going second. The opponent is now down to 3 cards. They end up discarding, again, some of their Uninkables that they're apparently stuck with in hand, using that Milo, the new legendary from Emerald. And I'm thinking here if I want to ink something, and I'm like, no, let me keep the cards in my hand because I likely will have to discard in this turn, and I'll discard the Morph and then play the Queen, assuming I draw an Inkable, or shift Tremaine. Sorry, I'm going to keep the Morph. Discard the Queen, and because the opponent's not questing clearly, and then just shift Tremaine here. So the Tremaine shift will force the out of the Bucky most likely, and then force a discard, putting the opponent on 1 card in hand and 1 card on field. And this is the double value you get off of Emerald Ruby. So when you think about like Emerald Steel discard, which is the way it was played in Rise of the Floodborn, you didn't get immediate value usually off of or I shouldn't say immediate, but you didn't get the 2-for-1 value off of the Steel Floodborn hitting the field because Tinkerbell would only deal 1 damage to stuff. The Beast doesn't really do anything. You would get your discard and your draw off Prince John, but the deck is just a little clunky. This deck is way faster because on turn 2, either you establish Morph for the powerful shifts, or you establish the Bucky to start the discard engine going. And then if you get both, as you saw in that match, you just end up dominating the match with the shift targets. So the opponent ended up resigning once they realized that, we got the other Bippity Boppity Boo and they saw what the first one did. In this next matchup here, we are going first, and we're opting to mulligan away anything that's high cost. And the nice thing about this deck too is despite playing some of the higher costing Uninkables, we don't play that many, and so the deck actually functions quite well. We're going to opt to play the Improviser, I believe, just as an Upstart Goblin. For those of you that don't know what that is, a Yu-Gi-Oh card, draw a card basically, a way to thin out your deck and get to your pieces that you need sooner. So we're looking obviously for a Morph and or a Bucky. The opponent on Emerald Amber here is most likely on a discard build. they establish a queen early on and a lantern, and then with the lantern they're going to establish a stitch, and I'm like, okay, this is actually fine because your hand is getting reduced, and I can probably end up discarding whatever you have left once I establish some sort of discard engine. But I do have to be wary of the opponent shifting here, and so the nice thing about this deck as well is Ruby and Emerald both have a lot of good evasives, and we're not playing the Ray in this one, but the Mini Surfer, the Goofies because it's a 3/4 body, and the Tinkerbell because it can give evasive to, you know, some of your powerful Floodborns like the Aladdin, let's say, and make the Aladdin take out an evasive character, which is wild. But yeah, the deck synergizes very well, and obviously you've seen what Bippity Boppity Boo can do with the deck. In this match, though, we are going to be able to drop the Genie, and it's pretty insane. But yeah, the opponent establishes a Pain here, which indicates to me they probably have Panic in hand, because this opponent also missed an Ink, and my guess is, yeah, their hand is just full of uninkables at this point, right? That's, again, the problem with these decks, and you have to know when you can't take your advantage, because like you need to play, you need your ink, right? Like you can't be missing ink early on in the game like this. It's, yes, you're ahead in the lore and you're kind of running away with things, so to speak, but I'm just going to be able to control the board state. You know, I'm on Ruby, right? Like, and the thing is, most people think you're on Be Prepared when they say Ruby. And like I said, we're not on Be Prepared in this matchup, because the Genie shift and utilizing free Dragonfires is actually pretty nice. So here you're going to see me establish a Queen of Hearts and then use the Tinkerbell to take out what I think is the bigger threat in the Stitch. But we're also going to sing the Teeth and Ambitions anyways with the Mini. I should have probably put 2 damage on the Queen, but this is actually better in hindsight, because if I need to challenge with the Queen can actually survive into either the Panic or the Pain, because it has 3 willpower. And if I would have teethed it for 2 damage, it would have just been taken out whenever I challenge the next thing here. And so the 4 power on the Queen is actually relevant. The opponent is going to drop a Tinkerbell, which gives their Pain evasive, and they're going to be able to take out my Tinkerbell, which isn't great, but if you haven't already kind of caught on, we draw the Genie. This is nice, but we have the Tremaine into Bippity Boppity Boo line, so we're going to end up, I think, challenging with the Queen into the Panic, because that's the one that quests for 2, and then we're going to, yeah, we're basically going to out the entire opponent's board here. So I probably should have run into the Pain now that I think about it, because then I would have only taken 1 damage, but it's fine. We inked the Teeth and Ambitions that we drew off of the Queen there, and the opponent is obviously going to banish their damaged Pain, and they're left with an evasive Tinkerbell. We got a disconnect there, which is interesting, but we sing the Bippity Boppity Boo with the Minnie Mouse in order to redrop the Tremaine and out the opponent's Tinkerbell here. And then next turn, I'm setting up for a Morph into Genie play, which is going to be questing for 3. And if I draw any actions, I'll be able to play them for free if I want. And again, if you look at the link in the description for the deck list, you know we play a number of different actions. Ideally, you know, playing Bippity Boppity Boos for free, playing Dragonfires for free is what you want. But we'll wait and see what other important actions end up coming out in Into the Inklands. But yeah, I really do like this Genie card, and I've always wanted to use it. The opponent establishes a Daisy Duck, which is quite interesting. And so for this reason, I'm not going to ink, because when the Daisy Duck quests, I'm going to discard the Morph. Hopefully they do not have another discard spell, like a Hypnotize or something, where I'll be forced to discard the Genie. But yeah, because they've been missing inks, like their options are very, very limited here. They're going to end up establishing a Simba, and I'm like, okay, that's not good for you actually, because I have a Queen that will draw me cards when I take your stuff out. So yeah, they end up questing with the Daisy Duck. They play out their hand in the Flynn Rider as well, and we top deck a Dragonfire, and I'm like, wow, could it be any better? We're going to throw the Tremaine into the Simba in order to draw. We get a Teeth and Ambitions off that. Then for 6, we're going to shift that Genie and then quest with Genie and use the Dragonfire for free, which will take out the Daisy Duck and leave the opponent on Flynn Rider only. Then we just quest with the Mini and pass turn. Or do we ink? Now we don't even ink, because yeah, if they drop a small body, we'll just Teeth and Ambitions it. But yeah, our board state is pretty good. If anything gets exerted, we have the Queen to draw cards off of anything, the Genie, the Tremaine, whatever is challenging. So the one deficiency with this deck is that, you know, you don't really have a draw engine. You could throw in Prince John's if you wanted to focus more on discard, but I just found like focusing on this evasive package is actually quite nice and a little bit more relevant. So Usually if you run out of cards, hopefully your evasive package can just end up winning you the game anyways. But yeah, the opponent ends up just questing, and oh no, I have game on board, never mind. So yeah, that's a GG. If you made this far in the video, let me know in the comment section below if you enjoyed this one, and leave a like if you did. Thank you again for watching. Quantum is out.